why good men are always used. There is a lie that has destroyed more lives than violence ever could. It doesn't leave bruises. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't arrive with the sound of broken glass or the echo of gunfire. Instead, it whispers. Quietly. Patiently. For years. Sometimes for an entire lifetime. It tells you that if you are kind enough, the world will eventually become kind to you. That if you sacrifice enough, people will appreciate your sacrifice. That if you are always available, you will never be abandoned. That if you avoid conflict, you will finally find peace. It sounds beautiful. It sounds moral. It even sounds noble. But reality has never promised to reward beautiful intentions. Reality responds to something else. Behavior. Pause for a moment and ask yourself an uncomfortable question. How many times have you helped someone who disappeared the moment you needed help? How many times have you stayed silent just to avoid an argument, only to discover that your silence was mistaken for weakness? How many opportunities have you given away because you were afraid someone might think you were selfish? How many dreams have you postponed because disappointing someone else felt more painful than disappointing yourself? If these questions make you uncomfortable, that's because they touch a truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. No one is born desperate for approval. It is learned. As children, we quickly discover which version of ourselves receives love. The obedient child, the quiet child, the child who never causes trouble, the child who always says yes. Every smile we receive becomes a lesson. Every compliment becomes a condition. Every reward teaches us something invisible. Your value depends on pleasing others. You don't notice it happening. No child does. But year after year, that belief grows stronger. Eventually, you stop asking yourself who you truly are. Instead, you begin asking a different question. What version of me will people accept? And without realizing it, you start building a personality designed for approval rather than authenticity. You become agreeable, reliable, available, understanding, patient, generous. None of these qualities are wrong. In fact, they are beautiful. Until they lose their balance. Every virtue becomes dangerous when it exists without strength. Kindness without boundaries becomes submission. Humility without confidence becomes insecurity. Patience without limits becomes silent suffering. Compassion without wisdom becomes permission. The tragedy is that most people never recognize the difference. They spend decades believing they are simply being good people. Meanwhile, something else is happening beneath the surface. The world is studying them, not listening to their words, not judging their intentions, studying their boundaries. Because human beings rarely treat you according to what you say. They treat you according to what you tolerate. Every time you remain silent when someone crosses a line, you teach them where the line actually is. Every time you apologize for something that wasn't your fault, you teach people that your dignity is negotiable. Every time you abandon your own priorities to satisfy someone else's expectations, you teach the world that your life belongs to everyone except you. This is how exploitation begins, not through cruelty, not through violence, but through repetition. Small compromises, repeated thousands of times, until they no longer feel like compromises at all. Imagine a man who never says no. At work, everyone praises him. He's dependable, responsible, always willing to help. Whenever someone needs an extra shift, they call him. Whenever deadlines become impossible, they call him. Whenever responsibility becomes inconvenient, they call him. At first, he feels appreciated, important, needed. But appreciation has a strange habit. When repeated often enough, it transforms into expectation. Soon, nobody thanks him anymore. His effort becomes invisible. His sacrifice becomes normal. The extra work becomes his responsibility. And the day he finally says no, people become angry. Not because he changed, but because he stopped behaving the way they had grown accustomed to. This pattern exists everywhere, in friendships, in families, in romantic relationships, in business. There is always someone who calls only when they need something, someone who disappears during your victories but reappears during their emergencies, someone who knows you struggle to disappoint people, someone who has quietly learned that your kindness has no limits. Most of the time, they aren't even consciously manipulating you. Human nature simply adapts to whatever behavior is consistently rewarded. Children test boundaries. Adults do exactly the same. The difference is that adults have become much better at disguising it. Many people hear this and immediately conclude that humanity is evil. Why? Everyone is selfish. That trust is impossible. But that isn't what this conversation is about. This isn't a story about becoming cynical. It's about becoming awake. Niccolò Machiavelli has been misunderstood for centuries. His name has become synonymous with manipulation, ambition, and cold calculation. Yet very few people have actually understood the question he spent his life trying to answer. Why do good people so often lose to those with fewer principles? Why are the most generous individuals so frequently exploited? Why does kindness, by itself, fail to protect those who possess it? His answer was uncomfortable, because it challenged an illusion that still dominates modern society. The world does not reward intentions. It responds to behavior. People believe what you allow far more than what you say. If your words demand respect, while your actions tolerate disrespect, your actions will always win. Because behavior is the language every human being understands. And perhaps that is the first truth you were never taught. The greatest danger in life is not becoming a bad person. The greatest danger is becoming someone who is so afraid of rejection that they abandon themselves long before anyone else has the chance to. The need for approval is one of the most expensive addictions a man can have. Unlike money, you never realize how much it has cost you until years have already passed. It doesn't empty your wallet. It empties your identity. Little by little, you begin making decisions that no longer belong to you. You say yes when every instinct inside you is screaming, no. You stay quiet when your conscience demands that you speak. You remain where you are no longer respected because the fear of being alone feels greater than the pain of being diminished. From the outside, everything appears normal. You smile, you work, you help, you show up. People describe you as reliable, easygoing, selfless. They admire your willingness to sacrifice. But what they never see is the silent war taking place inside your mind. Every compromise leaves a scar. Every swallowed word becomes resentment. Every ignored boundary becomes another piece of yourself surrendered to someone else's expectations. Eventually, you become exhausted, not because life is difficult, but because you are carrying responsibilities that were never yours to carry. Many men mistake this exhaustion for maturity. They convince themselves that adulthood simply feels this way, that suffering is the price of being a good husband, a good employee, a good son, a good friend. But suffering is not always evidence of virtue. Sometimes it is simply evidence that you have forgotten how to protect yourself. Carl Gustav Jung warned that whatever remains unconscious eventually controls our lives. Few ideas are more relevant today. Most people believe they are making rational decisions. In reality, they are obeying invisible fears formed decades earlier. the fear of disappointing others, the fear of conflict, the fear of abandonment, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of no longer being needed. These fears rarely announce themselves honestly. They disguise themselves as kindness, as patience, as humility, as generosity. But beneath every excuse lies the same question. If I stop giving people what they want, will they still love me? That question has destroyed more potential than failure ever has, because the man asking it is no longer living according to his principles. He is negotiating his identity. Every conversation becomes a performance. Every decision becomes a calculation. Every relationship becomes a transaction designed to preserve acceptance. He slowly forgets what he actually wants. His entire life becomes a reaction to the expectations of others. This is not compassion, it is dependency. Marcus Aurelius understood something extraordinary. As emperor of Rome, he possessed authority beyond imagination. Yet he wrote constantly about remaining indifferent to praise and criticism alike. He knew something most people never discover. Approval is temporary. Character is permanent. The crowd changes its opinion every day. Integrity does not. Imagine trying to build your life on something as unstable as public opinion. One day you are admired. The next day you are forgotten. The day after that, criticized. If your peace depends on the emotional weather of other people, you will never know stability. Because people are inconsistent, not because they are evil, because they are human. Today they appreciate your sacrifice. Tomorrow they expect it. The following week, they resent you for no longer providing it. That is the cycle of approval. It never ends. And the more desperately you chase it, the further it moves away. Machiavelli observed this pattern with ruthless honesty. He understood that people quickly become accustomed to whatever benefits them. What once inspired gratitude eventually becomes ordinary. This is why generosity alone cannot create respect. Respect is born where generosity meets boundaries. Without boundaries, generosity becomes obligation. Without boundaries, loyalty becomes exploitation. Without boundaries, love becomes possession. Ask yourself an uncomfortable question. How many times have you apologized simply to keep the peace, even when you had done nothing wrong? How many conversations have you avoided because honesty felt dangerous? How many opportunities have you abandoned because someone else disapproved? These moments seem insignificant. One apology, one compromise, one silent acceptance. But a life is never transformed by a single decision. It is transformed by thousands of repeated ones. Every repeated compromise teaches your nervous system the same lesson. My needs matter less than everyone else's. Eventually, you no longer require anyone to silence you. You silence yourself. That is the final stage of psychological dependence. You become your own prison guard. Epictetus taught that no man is free if he is ruled by what he cannot control. Most people assume he was speaking about governments, wealth, or physical slavery. He was speaking about something much deeper: emotional slavery. The moment another person's approval determines your sense of worth, your freedom no longer belongs to you. Your emotions become remote-controlled. A compliment lifts you. A criticism destroys you. A rejection defines you. A stranger's opinion becomes more powerful than your own conscience. Think about how absurd that truly is. You spend years building your life, only to surrender your peace to someone who has spent 5 minutes judging you. That is not humility. That is surrender. Real humility never requires self-abandonment. Real kindness never demands self-destruction. Real love never asks you to disappear in order for someone else to feel comfortable. There is another illusion that keeps millions trapped: the belief that setting boundaries will make people leave. Sometimes it will. But those departures reveal something important. The people who disappear because you developed self-respect were never committed to you. They were committed to your availability. They never loved your freedom. They loved your obedience. That realization hurts, perhaps more than any other, because it forces you to mourn relationships that never truly existed. Not every person who stayed beside you valued you. Some simply valued what you provided. The moment you stop providing unlimited access to your time, your energy, your attention, your emotional labor, many masks begin to fall. And that is not a tragedy. It is clarity. Clarity is painful, but confusion is far more expensive. Every illusion eventually sends an invoice. Some pay with money. Others pay with decades of their lives. The question is no longer whether people will test your boundaries. They always will. The real question is this: what will happen the next time they do? There comes a moment in every man's life when he can no longer pretend that nothing is wrong. It rarely arrives with dramatic music or a life-changing event. More often, it comes in silence, driving home after another exhausting day, lying awake long after everyone else has fallen asleep, looking into a mirror and realizing that the man staring back has become a stranger. Not because he failed, because he disappeared. He spent so many years becoming what everyone else needed that he forgot who he was supposed to become. That realization is terrifying, but it is also the beginning of freedom, because the greatest prison has never been built with iron bars. It is built from invisible obligations, from promises you never wanted to make, from expectations you never agreed to carry, from fears you inherited without ever questioning them. The moment you begin to see those chains, they start losing their power. Freedom never begins when the world changes. Freedom begins when your perception changes. For years, you believed that keeping everyone happy would protect your relationships. But did it? Did sacrificing your peace create genuine love? Did abandoning your own needs produce lasting respect? Or did it simply teach people that your limits could always be pushed a little further? These questions are uncomfortable because they expose a painful truth. Many people don't intentionally take advantage of you. They simply adapt to the version of you that you repeatedly present. If you always say yes, they stop asking whether you want to. If you never defend yourself, they assume you don't mind. If you constantly place yourself last, eventually, everyone else does the same. Human beings adapt to patterns, and patterns become reality. That is why transformation never begins by changing other people. It begins by changing what you repeatedly tolerate. This is where most people make a dangerous mistake. They believe boundaries are walls. They imagine becoming cold, emotionally distant, suspicious of everyone. But boundaries were never designed to keep love out. They exist to keep manipulation out. A healthy boundary doesn't destroy relationships, it reveals them. The people who genuinely care about you may be surprised at first. They may need time to adjust, but they will adapt because their connection was built on respect, not convenience. Those who become angry the moment you begin respecting yourself reveal something entirely different. They were never attached to your heart. They were attached to your compliance. That distinction changes everything. Miyamoto Musashi spent his life studying conflict. People often imagine that mastery means defeating enemies. Musashi understood something far more profound. The greatest warrior avoids unnecessary battles because he has already conquered the battlefield within, himself. He does not react impulsively. He does not seek revenge. He does not waste energy proving his worth. His calm is not weakness, it is discipline. He knows that every unnecessary reaction gives someone else control over his mind. The same principle applies today. Not every criticism deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves an explanation. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Sometimes the strongest move is silence. Sometimes the strongest word is no. For those addicted to approval, that word feels almost impossible to pronounce. 2 simple letters. Yet they carry the weight of years of conditioning. The first time you say no, your heart may race, your voice may tremble. You may even feel guilty. Not because you did something wrong, because your nervous system has confused self-respect with selfishness. That confusion is normal, but it cannot become permanent. Growth always feels unfamiliar before it becomes natural. Every meaningful transformation requires disappointing the version of yourself that survived by seeking approval. You cannot become free while trying to remain the person everyone expects you to be. Eventually, life forces a decision upon every man. Will you continue purchasing temporary acceptance by selling permanent pieces of yourself? Or will you finally choose authenticity even if it costs you comfort? Niccolò Machiavelli never suggested that men should become ruthless. He suggested something far more realistic. See the world as it is before deciding how to live within it. Illusions create victims. Clarity creates freedom. When you stop expecting fairness from every situation, you stop being shocked by disappointment. When you stop depending on universal approval, you stop negotiating your identity. When you stop fearing loneliness, you stop accepting relationships that require your self-abandonment. This is not the path of arrogance. It is the path of dignity. True dignity never demands applause. It exists quietly. It speaks through consistency, through discipline, through integrity that remains unshaken, whether the crowd applauds or condemns. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is not to become like those who have harmed you. Perhaps that is the lesson that unites every great philosopher. Do not answer manipulation with manipulation. Do not replace kindness with cruelty. Replace weakness with wisdom. Replace fear with clarity. Replace dependence with inner authority. Become a man whose compassion is guided by discernment, whose generosity is protected by boundaries, whose strength requires no audience, because the most dangerous man is not the loudest, not the richest, not the most feared. The most dangerous man is the one who can no longer be manipulated by praise, guilt, fear, or approval. The man who knows exactly who he is. And because he knows who he is, the world can no longer decide it for him. So tonight, before you move on with your life, ask yourself one final question. How many decisions that shaped your life were truly yours? And how many were made by your fear of disappointing someone else? If this message challenged the way you see yourself, don't let the reflection end here. Write one word in the comments. Boundaries. Not for us, for yourself. As a promise that from this day forward, your kindness will never again exist without strength. If this episode spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and join those who choose truth over comfort. Because here, we do not chase motivation. We pursue clarity. And remember, the truth does not comfort. It sets you free.